Dr. Liz Theoharis. I'm the director of the Cairo Center for Religions, Rights, and Social Justice at Union Theological Seminary and co-chair of the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival. We are privileged, along with the Samuel DeWitt Proctor Conference, to co-convene and launch this week an interfaith prophetic witness and prayerful action for a just democracy. The vision is indelibly written from Isaiah 58:1. Shout it aloud, do not hold back. Raise your voice like a trumpet. The vision is understood in the words and the sounds of Ella's song. We who believe in freedom shall not rest until it comes. Our only direction is towards the mark of justice. As the truth and light upon this nation reveals its underbelly of injustice, we stand on the promises of God that the prayers of the righteous availeth much. All across this nation, in all of its diversity, those who believe in democracy are casting votes for justice. Lights of love are being lit, and the sounds of the Spirit are being heard. Prayers of peace are transcending, and voices of victory are in the air. In the midst of multiple and intersecting pandemics, the pandemic of racism, the pandemic of impoverishment, the COVID-19 pandemic, and the pandemic of police violence and threats against the pillars of a democracy in the making, all over this nation, people of goodwill are joining this more prophetic vote. As we continue the march of souls to the polls, may the reign of an unsurmountable spiritual power manifest God's will for justice and righteousness upon this land. May the vision of love and light, truth and testimonies of God's power defeat all that is wicked in the land, and may all that is sacred in God's presence rest and abide in this prophetic call to witness. It is my pleasure to introduce a reflection offered by Reverend Dr. Angelique Walker-Smith.
Thank you for this opportunity to share. It is an honor to do so. My theme for this reflection is the following: pursuing dignity and the vote. The Bible accounts for these words in 1 Timothy 2:1-2. First of all, then, I urge that supplications, prayers, and intercessions and thanksgivings be made for all people, for kings and all who are in high positions, that we may lead a peaceful and quiet life, godly and dignified in every way. 100 years after President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation that freed African peoples from the horror of chattel slavery in the United States, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King stated the following in August of 1963. He said, quote, "Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negro in Mississippi cannot vote and the Negro in New York believes he has nothing for which to vote." End of quote. Dr. King echoed the words of St. Paul, the missionary, to his younger mentee, Timothy, in 1 Timothy 2:1-2. And like Timothy, Dr. King was a mentee and of moral leadership during this time. People like the Reverend Dr. Howard Thurman, the mystic and scholar, and the Reverend Dr. Benjamin Mays, the past president of Morehouse and a global Christian leader, come to mind. Ms. Ella Baker was also an important organizing and young adult strategist who worked with King. Dr. King, St. Paul, and Timothy the Apostle cared deeply about the acts of supplications, prayers, and intercessions for the people and those in leadership. Each shared a vision of a peaceful, godly, and dignified life for the people shepherded by such leadership that would foster these spiritual values. They took risks. They took risks that illustrated their commitment to this. But perhaps it was their unjust imprisonments that most dramatically displayed this. Or, in the case of St. Paul and Dr. King, it was their very martyrdom. The history of African peoples in and outside the United States bears witness to similar sacrifices made by African peoples to obtain their emancipated freedoms, in 1863 and 1865. Religious liberty, citizenship, and the right to vote and run for elected office. Still, these gains are challenged by economic and racial structures, policies, and practices that fuel the disproportionate numbers of African peoples affected by hunger and poverty. The historic and present stubborn barriers of COVID-19, voter suppression, the assault of reduced voter protections, and the lack of voter rights after imprisonment disproportionately affect the voting rights of people of African descent in the U.S. Yes, this still persists. How are we to end hunger and poverty without electing leaders who address these indignities? Voting at every level and fair representation matters. I encourage you to do your part to advocate for an end to these indignities. Vote.
Peace and blessings to all. I am Fariduddin Abdul Rashid Frederick Johnson, a senior elder of the In-Ayati Sufi order of the honored to be here with you today as we come together with our intention, our hearts, our minds, our spirit, our shared faith to come together with word to empower us in these challenging times. If I may offer Al-Fatiha, followed by a prayer for peace. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir-Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. In the name of our Creator, most beneficent, most merciful, send thy peace, O Lord, which is perfect and everlasting, that our souls may radiate peace. Send thy peace, O Lord, that we may think, act, and speak harmoniously. Send thy peace, O Lord, that we may be contented and thankful for thy bountiful gift. Send thy peace, O Lord, that amidst our worldly strife we may enjoy thy bliss. Send thy peace, O Lord, that we may endure all, tolerate all, in the thought of thy grace and thy mercy. Send thy peace, O Lord, that our lives may become a divine vision, and in thy light all darkness may vanish. Send thy peace, O Lord, our mother, our father, that we, thy children on earth, may all unite in one family, that we may see our humanity, that we will move beyond those boundaries created by us, that block us from seeing and knowing true peace. Send thy peace, O Lord. Send thy peace, O Lord. Send thy peace, O Lord. Amen. Amen. Amen.
Hello, I'm Pastor J. Edgar Boyd, Senior Minister here at First Amy Church in Los Angeles. And we join you tonight as we join brothers and sisters and people of good faith and people of good intent completely across the country, across this land of America. And I join you tonight fully aware that this nation and democracy as we know it is under siege. And we are at a point now that it becomes desperate for us to band together as a people to turn to God in times of difficulty and in times of need, to ask God to do several things for us, to help us to do what we must do to bring preservation for our nation and preservation for the way of life as we know it in this democracy called America. So we come together today and join other churches and we ring bells as we toll the bells to let justice run down like water and for righteousness to flow like a mighty stream. So we ring the bell for justice and for a just democracy. We sound the shofar for a just democracy that ensures all citizens vote without intimidation and without harassment. We offer a call to prayer for a just democracy for each person across race, ethnicity, religion, gender, and sexual orientation. We ring bells for a just democracy, one that eradicates racist voter suppression laws and lifts up the people, including every one of the millions of disenfranchised voters across this land. We ring the bell for a just democracy that respects all workers and knows each of the 227,000 Americans who have died from COVID-19 as essential workers and as being persons who are sacred to God. We lift up voices and chant for a just democracy that fights poverty, not the 140 million poor and low income in this country. We sound the shofar for a just democracy, one that ensures health care for all, including the 133 million Americans with pre-existing conditions. We ring the bell. We ring the bell for the earth, including the sacred lands of First Nations and indigenous beloved in peril now, as well as for water and air for our children to live by and to live with. We ring bells out to remember our core, who we are, why God called us, why God anointed us, and why God may have given us this country and what this country may yet become. We ring our bells with clarity of conscience, with sacred duty, sounding in our own very souls, those within this country and well beyond, recognizing our responsibility and the impact that we must make across this world. So we join you in the struggle. We join you in the fight for justice and for liberty and for right, but more than anything else in this struggle and right for voting and for voter privileges to make that great conscious decision and selection of those who will lead and govern us in this great land we call America and this government we know as democracy. God bless you and may God keep you in your sovereign commitment to helping make justice run down like water and righteousness flow like a mighty stream.